Hello everyone, this is your favorite professor, Dr. Mahmoud Al-Odeh, and we're here to discuss question number 6 on chapter 6. In this chapter, we've talked about the rate of return, and as you know, especially in this subject, you have different ways to find the rate of return. Just a brief introduction, what is the rate of return? A rate of return is how much you can get a revenue from investments. So assuming that you invested $20,000 and after the year you received $2,000 as a profit, as a revenue, then you divide whatever you got, the 2,000 divided by 20,000, and that will give you a 10% rate of return. So it is one of the financial measures that we use to make financial decisions. And one of the things that we're going to do here in chapter 6, question 6, is to learn a new skill. And this skill is called incremental analysis. I've been telling my students all the time, now in this course, you will learn a lot of techniques and a lot of strategies to make the correct decisions as related to finance. If you are able to master one of these techniques, you should be good, and you should no need to use multiple strategies. So let's take a look into this equation, and we'll show you different ways to make your wise decision based on data, based on fact. RAI Inc. is considering buying a new equipment to improve the company process of generating biomass energy. The following three alternatives are available in the market. So they're going to buy a specific machine to help them with a biomass energy. If the MERR, the minimum acceptable rate of return, is 10%, find the best alternative using the rate of return analysis. So first of all, let me comment on the MERR. The market attractive rate of return is or the minimum acceptable rate of return. That means if you have this much of money and you wanna invest it in a bank account, in a saving account, in a stock market, this money will bring you 10%. So it is a one way to make sure if this is going to if it's a good investment or not. So it is one of the way that we look at it as well. However, in this question, we're going to find the rate of return and compare it to the MERR. All right, so three alternatives. The information that we have, as you see here in this table: initial cost, benefit per year, cost per year, and a salvage value. Lifetime 4, 8, and 2. So number one that should keep in mind that this is not an equal lifetime. Therefore, we have to use the least common multiplier, chapter 4 and present worth chapter. And in this case, what we need to do, we have to find the least common multiplier and apply it in this question. So as you see, the least common multiplier for these three alternatives would be 8 years. So what you would do, the first thing is build the cash flows for these three alternatives. So I'm going to start with alternative 1. We have initial cost of 200,000. So this is going to be a negative 200,000 for year 0. And then on year 1, we're going to subtract the benefit from the cost per year. That would result in a net cash flow of 20,000. Let me stop right here. And the same thing for year 1 to 8. This is going to be constant. However, because this alternative has a 4-year lifetime, we have to buy, by the end of year 4, we have to buy a new machine, a new alternative, and collect the salvage value. So on year 4, we're going to collect the salvage value of 66,000 and pay $200,000 out negative cash flow to buy the new alternative. On year 8, we're not going to buy a new alternative. All we need to do is just only buy the salvage value. All right, so now what we're going to do here, yes, I want to highlight just some people will ask me, why did you have the dollar sign here? Well, because I want to use the same cell again and again, which is cell B71 here on my screen. I want to lock that cell. In order to lock it, you add a dollar sign before and after the letter of that cell. And in this case, when I build the cash flow, it will take the same cells, the same exact cell, B71 and B72. And this is just a one way to lock the cells and use the same values in the same cells. So I built the cash flow. I did build the cash flow for alternative 1. Now I'm going to do the cash flow for alternative 3, just because I would do the 2 first and then 3, but in my screen here it shows 3, so we're going to go with the 3 first. And as you see, alternative 3 will have a 2-year lifetime, so we have to buy this alternative 4 times over the lifetime of 8 years. So we're going to buy one on year 0, we'll buy another one on at the end of year 2, buy another one at the end of year 4, and buy another one at the end of year 6. It's exactly the same thing. We're going to look into what cash flows for that alternative. Cash 3 on year 0, there's only one cash flow, which is the negative 220,000, and this is the only cash flow that we see. On year 1, we see the benefit and the cost, the 85 and 40. So we subtract from each other. On year 2, we have 4 cash flows: the benefit per year, the cost per year, collecting the salvage value from the old asset, and paying the 220,000 for buying a new assets. So we're going to build the cash flow the same way. As you see, on year 2, we have 4 transactions. Year 6, we have also 4 transactions. Year 8, we have only 3 transactions because only we consider the salvage value for that year. There's no need to buy the new alternative. We built a lot of cash flows in the past on previous chapters, so this should be an old knowledge for you, not new to you. All right, so now for alternative 2, this is going to last for 8 years. Build the cash flow. On year 0, we have 240,000 in initial cost, and that would be the negative. Year 1 to 8, we have the benefits and the cost. So 50,000 minus 35, that would leave you with $15,000. And then on the last year, we have to collect the salvage value. All right, now we're done with the cash flows. And what we need to do, we just build the cash flow. Again, this is not a new thing for you. This is an old knowledge that you've been practicing over and over. If you have a question about the cash flows, please let me know. But the new knowledge is how to use the IRR. So the first technique that I want to show you, it's number 1, is find the IRR for all these transactions. So we did IRR for all these transactions. It did work. Not all the time. This is not the rule that you want to do. You want to go with the incremental analysis. This is what you need to do that. But before we do that, just to give us an idea on what option to select. Again, this is one of my students tried it and it worked. And I'm not gonna say no for it, but it did work and it did match the final answer. So you could use the IRR for all these transactions. Once you build the cash flow, use the IRR function, select all the values from year 0 to year 8, and that will give you a negative 9.27%, which means this company, if they're going to go with option 1 or alternative 1, they're losing basically 9% of their money. And doing the same thing, IRR for option 3, alternative 3, select all the values, and that will give you a negative 3.88%. And number 2, we will have to do the same thing, IRR, and find the rate of return, and that's going to result in a negative 6.99. Of course, all of these are negative rate of return, or basically interest rate, or losing here. So what we're going to do, we're going to pick the least expensive one. So this is option 3, alternative 3 will be the least expensive one. All right, now let's take a look into the another way, technique number 2, which is using the rate function as well. So for the rate function, I did put 4 years for alternative 1, 200,000. I'm sorry, it's at 60 minus 40. That's the PMT function, which is not the PMT function, the PMT power meter, which means a net present, a net value, a net annual worth would be 20,000 positive. And then for the next parameter is the PV, which is the initial cost of negative 200,000. And the last one would be the future value, which is the salvage value of 66,000. Click enter, that will give you 9.27%, which is match this number as well. So this is good. So we're happy now. We're having some match. The numbers are matching using different techniques. Number two, alternative two, we're going to use the same rate function, rate, 8 years. This is going to last for 8 years. And the PMT parameter would be the difference between the benefit and the cost. That would give you positive 15,000. And then the PV will be the initial cost, 240. And the salvage value is the future value, which is 40,000. Click enter, and that will give you a negative 6.99%. Again, match the number here from the IRR function. And the last one would be for alternative 3, use the same function, rate. That's going to be last for 2 years, 45,000 as the net annual worth on alternative 3, which is basically 45 minus 40. That will give you 45 positive 45,000. The PV is the initial cost, 220,000, and the future value would be the salvage value of 115. And in this case, we'll give you a negative 3.88%. Again, it did match with this result right here. So now we've learned two techniques, the IRR, the rate. Again, this is not the goal for this chapter. I want you to learn a new thing. Yes, we learned the IRR function and we did learn the rate function, but I want to go with the even more advanced skills and more advanced technique, which is called the incremental analysis. All right, for the incremental analysis, what we need to do, first step is to rank these alternatives. And I did post this because I want you to keep this in front of you when you do the incremental analysis. This will help you a lot to follow the 8 steps and will help you to reach to the correct answer and make the correct decision. All right, so we rank the alternative based on the initial cost, and the rank would be 1, 3, 2. Alternative 1, alternative 3, and then alternative 2. And now we do the cash flow for 1 and the cash flow for 3. We start with these two alternatives first. Okay, these are the least expensive alternatives, and see which one we're going to eliminate and which one we have to pick. All right, once we build the cash flow for 8 years, alternative 1, alternative 3, and now take the difference between this by subtracting the higher initial cost from the lower initial cost. And this would be 20,220 minus, again, or what we say, D89 here in my sheet, minus C89, or this is coming from basically subtracting negative 220,000 minus 200,000. That would leave you with a net operation of negative 20,000. And we do the same thing for all the years, subtraction, just very similar. Once you build that, select the cell and drag it all the way down from the corner. And once you have this difference between these cash flow 3, alternative 3, and cash flow 1, you take the IRR. All right, this is not going to make anything. It's just going to give you an idea on which one we should select and which one we should eliminate. Looking into the IRR, it's higher than the MARR, which is the 10%. Therefore, we should select alternative 3, and alternative 1 is out of the game. Now the game is between alternative 1 and alternative 3 and alternative 2, because we eliminated 1. So 1 is out of the game. Now it's between 3 and 2. We do the same thing. Build the cash flow for alternative 3 and the cash flow for alternative 2. And now take the difference between these two alternatives, the cash flow, the difference between these cash flow. Cash flow of alternative 2 minus the cash flow of alternative 3. And why is that? Because cash flow of the alternative 2 has the higher initial cost. Take a look here. Subtract step number 4. Subtract the cash flow of the higher initial cost from the cash flows of the lower cost. So we did that. We subtracted 2 from 3, and this will result in a new cash flow here. Now what we do the IRR for these values, and this would give us an IRR value of 7.65. What does that mean? We compare it with the minimum acceptable rate of return. This is less than 10%. Therefore, we should look in here, step number 6. If the IRR is less than the MERR, what we need to do, we need to select the alternative with the lower initial cost. Which one is the lower initial cost? Alternative 3 is the winner for this whole problem. So alternative 3 should be selected. We did eliminated 1 and 2. This is not profitable, and this will match the technique number 1 and technique number 2 here, what we did for these alternatives. Again, I hope this is helpful. It is fun chapter. It is a challenging chapter. Go dive into the other questions, and if you have any concerns or any question you want to ask, feel free to email me. Thank you.